Okay, so now we're going to be talking about proper procedures while mixing herbicides. Sometimes you might be mixing in the field, but normally you're going to be mixing your herbicide solution at your home base, your shop, or wherever your herbicide storage area is. And it's important to follow a fairly consistent process while you're doing that. First of all, as with all steps in using herbicides, you need to utilize your personal protective equipment properly. And so when it comes to mixing herbicides, you're using the most concentrated form of the herbicide. And so you need to wear actual goggles, not sunglasses, not eyeglasses, or not just those open-sided safety glasses. You need to wear goggles that provide you with full protection so that you don't get concentrated herbicide into your eye. You also need to wear your gloves, again, for the same reasons. And typically you're going to be wearing the same outfit you're going to be using in the field. So long sleeves, long pants, your rubber boots, all of those standards still apply for mixing, and in fact are even more important when you're mixing. The next step you want to follow is to understand what your target plant is, what the appropriate herbicide solution to make for that target plant, and what your site is, and what site sensitivity issues exist in that site. So it may be that you're working in a wetland area, and in that case you need to mix a solution of aquatic approved herbicide and aquatic approved surfactant. It may be that you're working near threatened or endangered plants or animals, and possibly culturally important non-threatened plants like important old live oak trees near a historic building. And in those cases, you need to make sure you select herbicides that are not going to have unintended non-target damage. And an example of that would be using imazapyr, which has soil activity and can damage nearby hardwood trees. Once you know what you're going to be using and what your site is, you can begin the mixing process. And a good step to follow with that is to utilize your cheat sheet.
So today we will be mixing a 3-gallon barrel of 3% triclopyramine, which is equivalent to 12 ounces. Once you pour that into the barrel, we will go ahead and add our surfactant, which is equivalent to 2 teaspoons per gallon. You do have a conversion table over here. 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters, or 2 teaspoons equals 10 milliliters. So we will be using 30 milliliters. After that, you will be adding your dye, and you will follow the label according to the back. Ours is 2 to 3 ounces per 3 gallons, so that's what we will be using. Before you begin the mixing, you will add your barrel with half of the water, or 3/4 full with water. After that, you will be adding your herbicide, following with adjuvants, and then top it off with the remainder of water.
So now we're going to demonstrate proper mixing technique. When you're mixing a large quantity of herbicide, you always start with 1/2 to 3/4 of the total water you're going to be using. And you add that first into your either barrel or a smaller container, whatever you're going to be spraying with or transporting with. You can use a large measuring cup to help you measure gallons of water. You can also use markings on the side of your barrel or on the side of your transport container. Many of them will have 1 gallon, 2 gallon, etc. markings on the side. After water, the next step is to add the herbicide. It's helpful to have a partner assist you with your measuring, so while one person is pouring, the other person can be watching to make sure you reach the right quantity. After herbicide, you add your adjuvants. Typically this is going to be some kind of surfactant, maybe a drift control agent, and usually some kind of dye, typically a blue dye. And whenever you use a dye, try and pour as carefully as you can, because the nature of dye is that it tends to get everywhere, and it's hard to control.
That's it.
While you're mixing, you can also triple rinse your measuring containers. And you can use your last portion of water that you need to add to your mix to do that triple rinse process. And that usually is going to be 1 or 2 measuring cups and a funnel. By doing that triple rinsing while you are mixing, it enables you to keep your equipment clean, but it also keeps you from generating excessive quantities of rinsate. And of course, it's important to do this entire process over some kind of secondary containment. In this case, we're using an inexpensive kiddie pool. You can also purchase more durable secondary containment trays and bins. You can use things like small totes if you're using a smaller size receptacle. And that will help you from getting those inevitable splashes of herbicide, dye, etc. from landing on the floor of your mixing area or onto the ground. Keeping paper towels on hand to clean up those small spills will also always be helpful. And that's the basic process of mixing. So it's important to remember when mixing that you don't want to mix directly into your backpack sprayer. And the reason for that is that the pump set up inside the sprayer can trap your concentrated herbicide and end up with not putting all of the herbicide into solution. So you want to mix into a smaller receptacle, like a 2.5 gallon jug, shake it up to agitate it well, and then pour that into your backpack sprayer or into your hand sprayer, whatever you're going to be using in the field. One additional form of mixing could be utilizing what's called a short fill barrel. In this case, this is a common technique when you're mixing triclopyr ester with a penetrating oil, a basal oil. And you can actually purchase the herbicide barrels not filled to the top, but filled to a level that allows you to just pour an entire 2.5 gallon container into the short fill barrel to achieve your percent solution that you're looking for. So in this case, for an 18% solution, we would pour this 2.5 into the short fill barrel of penetrating oil to give us our desired outcome, our desired solution. And it doesn't involve any additional mixing. You simply open up the barrel with your barrel wrench, of course use a funnel so that you can contain your spills, doing this over a secondary containment, and then pour your entire jug of herbicide in there. And that's what's called using a short fill barrel for mixing.